Patrick Sean Kelly was a 22-year-old man studying at the University of Southern California, Los Angeles. Patrick was originally born into the Blood Indian tribe in Canada. However, he was placed into foster care when he was only 18 months old. He was adopted by Terry Kelly and lived in Alberta, Canada for most of his life. During his early teenage years, Patrick found love for writing and storytelling. While in high school, Patrick decided to become a filmmaker, and in 1993 he was accepted into the USC Film School Undergraduate Screenwriting Division, a highly competitive program which accepts only 24 students worldwide. He would spend his next 3 years studying at the university, and friends and teachers believed that he was a, quote, star on the rise. For his final year project, Patrick had to write a feature-length film, for which he got an A. On Friday, May 3, 1996, Patrick went out with his friend, Michael Park, to celebrate the end of the semester. They returned to Patrick's dorm and watched a movie before Michael left around 3:45 a.m. This would be the last time that Patrick was ever seen alive. The weekend went by and Patrick did not call his mother, which was unusual as he would regularly call her every weekend. Meanwhile, at around 1 a.m. on Sunday, May 5th, a pedestrian was a victim of a motorcycle accident along the Avenida Internacional in Tijuana, Mexico. The man was critically injured and was taken to a nearby hospital, but died 6 days after the accident. Since the man did not carry any identification, police were unable to identify him, and he was classified as desconocido, or unknown. His photo was published in newspapers, and he was incorrectly identified as Luis Rodriguez. When Patrick did not call his mother Terry on the weekend, and calls to his phone went unanswered, Terry called Patrick's friend, Michael, to check up on him. Michael went to Patrick's dorm, but Patrick was not there. His wallet, along with his bags and clothes, were still in the room, although his passport was missing. Michael also noticed a message from Patrick's bank on his answering machine, asking him to call them back. Michael notified Terry, and she called the bank. She learned that Patrick's bank account had been overdrawn and that there had been several ATM transactions, all of which had taken place in Mexico over the weekend. According to bank records, Patrick withdrew $60 from a 7-Eleven in San Clemente, California at around 10:24 a.m. on Saturday, May 4th. On the same day at 6:08 p.m., another withdrawal of $135 was made at a bank ATM in Tijuana, Mexico. The next day, on Sunday, May 5th, 3 additional withdrawals totaling $114 were made at an ATM in downtown Tijuana. This caused his bank account to be $17 overdrawn. Worried, Terry reported Patrick missing. Patrick was a Canadian citizen and a permanent resident of California, so Terry reported him missing to both the Canadian Embassy in Mexico and to Canada's Department of Foreign Affairs in Ottawa. But she never heard anything from them. She then decided to hire her own private investigator, Doug Roth, to track down Patrick. Doug went to the San Clemente 7-Eleven convenience store where Patrick had made his first withdrawal. He asked the owner to check CCTV footage. In security footage, Patrick can be seen entering the store at around 10:02 a.m. The footage also captured another man entering the store moments later. The man attempted to communicate with Patrick and followed him out of the store. It seemed like the two were together. This man has yet to be identified. The private investigator then decided to continue south towards Mexico. On May 20th, along the way, he checked the parking lots of the border, hoping to find Patrick's car. Many tourists leave their vehicles at these parking lots before going to Mexico on foot. Doug showed the photo of Patrick's car to the parking lot attendants, and one of them recognized the car that was still in the parking lot. The car was parked at the back fence and was caked in mud. The car's front bumper was damaged and the rear license plate was loose. Looking inside, the private investigator noticed that the driver's seat was far too close to the steering wheel, suggesting that someone else had driven it, as Patrick was a tall man at 6'1", and it is unlikely that he would have kept the seat that close to the steering wheel. Doug also found a partially smoked cigarette in the ashtray of the car, but Patrick had never smoked, and he never let anybody smoke in his car. Checking the radio, Doug found it to be tuned to a Spanish-American radio station, which Patrick would have never listened to. Doug then gave Patrick's photo to the parking lot manager, who offered to help him. The lot manager gave the photo to his girlfriend, who lived in Tijuana. She distributed this photo to the police stations, hospitals, and morgues. Soon, she found Patrick's body in a morgue. The man that was the victim of the motorcycle accident, Patrick, had been incorrectly identified as Luis Rodriguez. Terry traveled to Tijuana and conclusively identified the body belonging to her son. According to Mexican police, all of his possessions, including his ATM card, his Canadian passport, his car keys, and his clothing, were missing. When questioned, Mexican authorities gave conflicting reports about Patrick's death. At first, they said Patrick was hit by a car. They later changed their statement and said that he was a passenger on a motorcycle which had struck a pedestrian, and then he was thrown into the path of an oncoming car. Then, they said that he was the passenger on a motorcycle which had hit a pothole and was thrown off the motorcycle. According to current official reports, at approximately 1 a.m. on May 5th, a motorcyclist named Tony Huerta was heading east along Avenida Internacional when two pedestrians suddenly ran into the middle of the street. The motorcyclist lost control and hit Patrick, critically injuring him. Patrick was taken to the hospital but died 6 days later. According to Tony, he had no idea who he had hit and couldn't confirm if it was really Patrick. Tony does not know what happened to the second pedestrian, as after the accident, he and his passenger were both unconscious, and they only regained consciousness in the hospital. Two witnesses also said they saw the motorcyclist hit Patrick, although one of them would later say that he did not actually see the victim's face and could not be sure it was Patrick. It is unclear why Patrick was misidentified as Luis Rodriguez. His photo was published in the newspaper with incorrect details, such as his height being listed at 5'5", his age 27 years, and his weight obese. The report claimed he was wearing a blue t-shirt and white tennis shoes. In all actuality, Patrick was 6'1" and a fit 200 pounds, wearing a tan t-shirt and black Vans shoes. The clothes he was wearing were destroyed at the hospital. Mexican authorities say the misidentification was an honest mistake. However, more inconsistencies led the private investigator Doug and Terry to suspect a cover-up. According to Mexican authorities, Patrick's injuries were due to the accident. However, when Doug viewed Patrick's body, he noticed injuries to his face and upper body. He believed that Patrick was severely beaten. Terry asked the LA coroner's office to perform an autopsy on her son, but they refused as it was out of their jurisdiction. Terry asked the LA coroner's office to perform an autopsy on her son, but they refused as it was out of their jurisdiction. Terry then hired an independent pathologist who performed an autopsy on Patrick and concluded that, quote, "The findings do not support the conclusion that death was due to a motor vehicle accident." Later, the LA coroner's office agreed to do the autopsy if Terry paid for it. According to this autopsy, Patrick could have been in a motor vehicle accident. However, without accompanying accident scene reports, they were unsure. The LA coroner's autopsy results did state that the autopsy results from Mexican authorities were inaccurate. Patrick did not have a ruptured spleen, nor did he have broken ribs, nor a fractured skull, nor did he die from septic shock. The LA coroner's office does not believe that Patrick's injuries were fatal in and of themselves. Another strange fact was that Patrick was still in the hospital on May 5th at around 5 p.m. when his ATM card was used to withdraw cash 3 times until it was overdrawn. Only Patrick knew his PIN number to his card, and it is unlikely that he would have given his PIN to anyone else willingly. Another suspicious fact was that the parking lot's record showed Patrick's car had been driven out of the parking lot by someone after paying a $60 fee. This was on May 15th, 4 days after Patrick died in the hospital. The car was then returned to the same spot the next day and stayed there until the private investigator finally found it on May 20th. The LAPD agreed to do a limited forensic analysis of Patrick's car and found what they believed to be blood spatters on the driver's side door. However, they refused to test it as Patrick died in Mexico and it was out of their jurisdiction. Terry contacted Canada's Department of Foreign Affairs, but they said they could not do anything as it was out of their jurisdiction as well. The private investigator, Doug, believes that Patrick went to Tijuana with another individual and may have met some unsavory characters. They may have taken in Patrick as a hostage and beaten him until he gave up his PIN number. Patrick likely escaped and was running for his life when he was struck and killed by the motorcycle. The U.S. and Canadian authorities have refused to look into the case as it is out of their jurisdiction, while Mexican authorities stick to their accident story. One of the Tijuana police officers said that any official inconsistencies reflect confusion, not a whitewashing. Quote, "This was not a homicide. That is the figment of the private investigator's imagination. He's putting ideas into the family's head to make money." When Terry contacted Canada's Department of Foreign Affairs, they advised her not to push forward, as Mexican authorities could smear Patrick's name. According to a diplomat, police informally alleged that Patrick was involved in narcotics trafficking. However, they have since dropped that issue. Patrick's mother has fought for over 25 years, tooth and nail, to find the answers surrounding Patrick's mysterious death, but his case remains unsolved.